Hey guys, so tonight is pretty bittersweet because it's my last night of being in my room here, and I had also some really amazing things happen today, some very unique experiences that made me really reminisce about my time here in Valor. And even though I'm not leaving for another month and a half, it really made me wish that time were going slower and that I had a lot more time left in India than I do. So I wanted to just reminisce about the day today because some really amazing things happened that I don't want to forget. So I woke up a little bit late. I normally wake up by 6:30 or 7, either get a workout in or go for a swim before I get into my lab at 8. And if I had a rough night or couldn't sleep, as often has been happening the past couple nights, I let myself sleep just for a little bit, especially if I don't need to get into the hospital by 8 o'clock for OPD. And instead of making breakfast here, like making oatmeal like I normally do, I decided to cut some corners, and I went and got an omelet at the canteen and a glass of tea. And I kind of forget exactly how I started talking to her, but I think it was just that I asked for my breakfast and thanked the cashier completely in Tamil. And the one behind me was like, "Oh, you can speak Tamil," and that's always a reaction, so I don't really think of it. I always say, "Kunjum kunjum Tamil tariyam," which means, yeah, I can understand a little Tamil. And so it just got us talking, and most of the time the patients at that canteen or the people at the canteen are patients in the hospital of the rehab campus for paraplegics or mental retardation or any kind of physical therapy that needs to happen after some major surgery like amputations or that sort of thing. So I asked her where she was from, and she said she was from West Bengal, which is very typical. And I said, "Oh, are you from Calcutta," which is oftentimes where we see our patients coming from if they're traveling from far away. Calcutta is known for not having a very good hospital system, so a lot of times our patients are taking the 24, 26-hour train from Calcutta to come all the way down to Valor because the hospitals in Calcutta are not very good, and here at CMC they're very well trusted. So I just asked her. She said that her daughter had a stroke at the age of 13, and the left side of her body had been paralyzed. She had to take her out of school, and for the first 3 years she really wasn't getting a lot of help in Calcutta. And finally she decided to come down to CMC, and she's been here with her daughter for the past 2.5 months trying to get her help. She's now 19 years old, and I could just hear the pain in her mother's voice when she said that her daughter doesn't have any friends anymore because no one's really willing to come and stick by her side through this really tough time because it's very hard for her to speak. She can't walk anymore. She's put on a lot of weight, and it's just been a really tough time. And so our conversation kind of continued for a while. By the end, she said, asked me if I would come for lunch, if I would come meet her daughter, because it would really brighten her day. And of course, I said, "Yeah, what time do you have lunch? I'll come and I'll have lunch with you and your family." So we planned that by 12:30 I would come and I would meet up with her, and just instinctively I grabbed something that I do in my spare time, which is do hand crochet, which I thought if the daughter found any interest in, maybe she could do since she's bedridden. So I brought a little bit of that just to share with her. So anyways, I go into the rehab campus, find her hospital room, which is like a semi-private room, meaning they share a common kitchen and a common bathroom. But there's 2 rooms that are connected to it, and they still pay $2,500 rupees a day, which is $37, which by US standards is very inexpensive, but by Indian standards it can be a lot for a family, and in a case that they can't afford it, they would forego being able to give their son or daughter or brother or sister that kind of a treatment because they can't afford it. So if you have a private room, it's double the cost of $5,000 a day, which is $75. So basically like a cheap hotel in the US, but again, relatively speaking, it's very expensive. So yeah, as soon as I came in, the daughter's face just lit up, and we immediately connected over things such as she loves to read, and music is a big part of what keeps her spirits up, and so we were sharing music back and forth. I took out the hand crochet, was showing her how to do that, and I could tell she was struggling, especially with the left side of her body that was paralyzed, but honestly, I felt like it was a really good tactile and fine motor skill exercise, and in the end, she picked it up so quickly and she was doing it pretty fast. And then the family cooked completely West Bengal food for me and was teaching me there's subtleties about how West Bengals eat their food, idiosyncrasies as to how much rice you mix and what you eat with what, and you're not supposed to drink water while you're eating a meal. And so they were scolding me on all these things, and we were just laughing so hard throughout all of it, and I was obviously taking all the hits and just using humor where they wouldn't misunderstand me, but that we could still make light of the situation. And honestly, by the end, I just had such a good time that when they invited, they said, "You have to come to Calcutta. We're being discharged on the 4th of April, but you have to come to Calcutta. We'll pick you up from the airport, blah, blah, blah." And I could just tell that the mom was so grateful that I had been willing to come, because the smile on the daughter's face was just undeniable. It was like we were laughing and just sharing great stories with each other, and it really warmed my heart. So after that, I went straight back to the department. There were 2 foreign students that had come and wanted to get a tour of the bioengineering department, and I got to explain my project to them for about, we were planning only like a half hour, but it turned into like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, where they were super interested, and we were just exchanging other stories, and we kind of delved into the rest of my experience here. We touched on everything from my work with the Gypsy women to my Frisbee team to places I had gone, how safe I felt like traveling alone, and like there weren't that many topics we hadn't touched. You know, in the beginning, they had walked in and I could feel they kind of like wanted to assert themselves in terms of like what they knew and didn't know, and you could kind of tell that they were a little bit out of their comfort zone being in India, but they kind of let that guard down when we were able to talk just about like shared experiences in India, or I could relate to them with like the frustrations they were having about certain things of having just arrived to India. And by the time they left, I had been feeling just exhausted. I had had a long day of talking with people, and I just felt like I had poured a lot of energy outwards. And then came the invitation that one of the 2 students was only staying for that day. One of the 2 girls who I had been talking with my project was only staying for the evening, and she was going to go into town and just wanted to walk around the temple area, maybe do some shopping. And so I realized like in that moment, like I would love to get to be there with her and like show her some things. And she was definitely like questioning a lot about like what she could and couldn't do as like, you know, a foreigner, and like what was safe or what wasn't, like places that she could eat at or shouldn't. And so I felt like I had already like affirmed her on a lot of things, and I just wanted to like still be there for her. And honestly, our conversation was a lot of fun, and so I invited the other student who had also been there that afternoon. And so us plus another person from our department joined, and we just went and walked around the Hindu temple. I got to show them some like tidbits and facts that I knew about the temple, and my Indian friend like further explained things I couldn't explain about the Hindu religion. And you know, we just made sure that they felt comfortable and could ask whatever questions they wanted to. And honestly, I learned a lot as well from their questions and the things that I couldn't answer. And it was just really peaceful. It was, you know, the sun had set, and like people were milling in and out of the temple's like square courtyard area. And a lot of like the way that you worship is with like a candle or a flame. And so that kind of like flickering light, it just really gave a lot of ambiance to the setting. And even just leaving that, both of them mentioned like how nice that was and like how unique of an experience that was for them, and just made me realize, and like whenever I take someone who is a foreigner with me to something I do have access to any day, and they recognize or verbalize how unique it is, it really reminds me not to take those things for granted, or that it really reinstills that novelty, that it really is different than what I would be experiencing back home, and that it is a little crazy that it's become a sense of normalcy here, that I'm seeing and experiencing those things. So anyhow, we then traveled and we went to Velour Kitchen for dinner, and again I was able to like order on their behalf, and we talked about everything. And this was one of my favorite parts of the day, was just like they were asking questions. And honestly, one of the girls, like, not that she was being insensitive, but she didn't realize that some of the questions she was asking may be offensive, or the way she was phrasing things may make someone feel awkward. And my Indian friends took it with the best intention, but at one point when we were like talking about arranged marriages, my friend who isn't yet married but working on her PhD, who probably is feeling some pressure to get married right after PhD, or like get married now, and then there's a question of whether she'd finish her PhD or not, and her like PhD advisor was like sitting with us. I could just feel that Anne was really feeling very awkward, and so she just came out and said, Anne's like, can we change the subject? I just don't want to talk about this anymore. And I felt really bad, but you know, we changed the subject, and you know, it just left me thinking and realizing like how I was able to identify the body language and when some of the questions were too personal, whereas if I had been in this other girl's shoes, I probably would have been asking the same questions. I probably had those awkward conversations that I just don't remember, but now I've come to feel like I really can ask those and answer those questions, and recognize when there's really a difference in culture, and people just don't realize that some of these things are sensitive or really so different, that defines the differences in our culture. So anyways, our conversations, you know, went everything from arranged marriages to how you eat with your hands. In India, you only eat with your right hand. The other hand you either leave on the table or in your lap altogether. And you do everything from tear, like your roti or your naan, which is kind of like the equivalent of a tortilla, to use to like scoop up your curries. And like you also, if you're accepting or giving anything of importance, you receive it with your right hand as well. So if you're giving someone money or accepting some like blessed temple food at like a Hindu temple, you always accept it with your right hand. Like even taking communion at a Christian church, you take it with your right hand and like only your right hand, because your left hand is used in the washroom when you go to the bathroom, like to do your business. And so even though sanitation may have improved, it's just for them mentally, you still do things of importance, or out of respect, you do it only with your right hand. And so I just felt like sometimes things that I was sharing, the other two were impressed, and like my Indian friends didn't have anything to add, and they recognized that I had really come to know like the ins and outs of some of these subtle idiosyncrasies of Indian culture, where it just seemed normal for me, but you know, I had to take a step back and I got to recognize like the things that I could explain well, or the things that I could identify as being something very unique that Indians in the first place wouldn't be able to explain or be able to notice, like how this is so much of a difference than other places. So, you know, we talked about how I comprehend traffic, like how I rationalize the way that traffic works in India. And we talked about like the use of tuk-tuks or auto rickshaws as they're called here, and like how you bargain, what's the difference between a shared auto and like a solo auto, and like the bus system, and how like a whole family will pack itself on a bike. And they were just like verbally expressing how crazy it was if they saw like a family of four, like a baby on the handlebar and the dad, and then like a toddler between the mom and the dad, and the mom sitting on the back like side saddle, and things like that, which I've become very desensitized to, but they just remind me that these are things that are not normal, but I've come to embrace as part of my everyday life. And you know, differences in language, like the use of the word bike here in India means a motorcycle, whereas obviously like back home a bike means like bicycle. But if you want to refer to a bicycle here, you use the word cycle. So things like that, just like funny differences in culture. I felt like I could speak to a lot of that. And when we were saying goodbye, one that I would probably never see again, and one that would be here for almost the entirety of the rest of my time here, I just really realized how much I've come to learn and that I could pass off to another person, helping them adjust and feel comfortable and understand what it's like to live here in India. And it really made me realize how much I've learned, and almost how scared I am to go home, because this place is starting to feel like a home, and this place is starting to feel like I get to share my excitement about this place with someone else. And normally you only do that in a place that you have felt comfortable in for a long time, that you feel like you really have something to share in. And I realized how many experiences I have that I can speak to and be able to mentor someone else and encourage them about recognizing when the culture is different, but that it's really a beautiful, exciting, and such a colorful place to live. And I don't know, it was kind of crazy, because then when I came home and you know, recognized that I'd be moving out of this place, I opened my phone and I got a message from one of my really, really good friends. She's the mom of some kids that I love to go hang out with. And even before she knew I was a Fulbright scholar, she had been thinking of applying as a teacher for the US Fulbright like teaching exchange program, where Indian teachers get 6 weeks of exposure in an American academic setting. And she had been planning to apply for this, and when then she found I was a Fulbright scholar, she asked if I would help her with her essays, and I said absolutely. It would mean the world to me, and how full circle could it be if I could help contribute to someone else's experience and exchange of ideas by going to the US. And so I had helped her about a month ago write the essays and get them submitted. She did obviously a lot of the grunt work, but I really tried to help her understand what the Fulbright program is about and what they look for in a really good application. And so I felt really honored that I could help mentor her in this way, and I really valued how much she valued my words and my advice, to the point where when she was submitting, I really felt confident in what she was doing, and I just had to surrender this feeling that there's probably a lot of people applying, you know, in the same way that I had to. But I said, you know, at a minimum, I've given her hope, and I've affirmed her that I think she would make an amazing candidate to have that experience in the US. And lo and behold, that today I got a text message from her. I'm going to tear up that she's moved on to the interview round, which she's heard that if you make it onto the interviews, you're more than likely in. They just want to make sure you are who you say you are. And I started tearing up. I called her right away, and I just tried to explain how proud of her I am and how excited I am for her. And sorry. And I think mostly it's because I had such an amazing day being exposed and talking with the girl from West Bengal at Kolkata, you know, who values CMC as such an important place and such a respected place for their treatment, and then getting to share about my project with 2 foreign exchange students who I was able to like really convey my passion for this work here, and then going out at night and walking around the temple and going to dinner and really getting to share my understanding of Indian culture with them, only to then be told that someone I care deeply about here is going to get that chance, that exchange of ideas in the US. was really humbling. So it was just an amazing moment. And the interviews are in a few weeks in Chennai, and I have a really good feeling about it. But even if she doesn't, it means a lot for her to have made it this far. So yeah, that's all that I have for you. Sorry that this ended in such an emotional state, but this is just one of many days that my feelings have been this way, especially as things wrap up here. And yeah, I'm gonna be sad when I go, but it's nights like this that remind me to not take any minute, any afternoon, any dinner conversation for granted. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about my day, and know that I'll be sharing some more things soon. All right, take care.